Here are your co-hosts and cybersecurity experts, Brian Horning, Reginald Andre, and Randy Bryan.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another week where we bring you the goods on cybersecurity on the Security Squawk podcast. I am your co-host, Brian Horning, here with Reginald Andre and Randy Bryan. How are you, gentlemen? Welcome to another week of cyber attacks.
Hey, what's going on?
So this week, guys, we're going to jump into some existing cyber attacks that are going on. I think we've got like 4, and then on the back end here, we'll jump into some key trends that we're seeing, some interesting stuff, kind of to bring everybody kind of up to speed on what's happening out there in the world when it comes to cybersecurity. I would be remiss if I didn't mention something about what's happening over in the Middle East. Yes, we are hearing reports of cyber attacks increasing from various groups, Russia, Iran, all being included in those groups. But we don't have any detailed information other than some government websites and things like that. But I'm sure as time moves on here and this conflict moves on and drags on, we're going to learn more about different cyber attacks and different, not only state-sponsored groups, but criminal groups that are taking advantage of the situation. So,
yeah, I want to make a little comment about that. We mentioned that when the Ukraine war broke out, we saw, I think it was a 5x-ish increase in attacks on 365 coming out of Russia, and a 10x attack increase on attacks coming out of China. Like over that weekend, it went whoop, whoop. And, bottom line is that's going to be the new normal. I think being cyber secure is it's like a national responsibility at this point, man. It's something that we need desperately, because that's going to be how it is every time we're in any kind of a conflict anywhere in the world. There's going to be tons of cybersecurity stuff.
Cybersecurity stuff. That's right. So, Andre, anything you want to share? Your thoughts on what's going on in the world today?
No, outside of what you guys shared is fine. I am at a Southeast Regional Domestic Security Task Force, where it's basically the law enforcement in the Southeast region of Florida. They protect about 6 million citizens. So it's really cool hearing. It's really cool hearing about what's happening in the conference. And the surprising thing is that everything we're talking about in the show is like there's like as if they watched our show and they're talking about all the key words that we've been talking about. So it's good to know that we are ahead of it, and you guys are listening to it.
Yeah, and that goes without saying. Remember to, if you're a frequent viewer or listener of the show, you know that we always ask you to share the show. But for the new people, if you don't know, we don't do ads. We never have. We're going over 2 years strong with this podcast. And we don't bore you with that kind of stuff. We bring you the goods. We talk shop from our expertise level for 45 minutes, sometimes an hour. And we do it because we have a passion for this stuff, and we want to educate the public about what's going on out there, because we really do feel like very few people really understand this and understand the threats that are out there and what's coming here in the future. So our goal with the show is to try to get the word out so people start to understand this stuff at a deeper level. We joke about it, but the MGM hack got a lot of people's attention because a lot of people go to Vegas, or a lot of people use the MGM app to gamble from their phone. And it impacted, a lot of people. And I think I said on the show, I don't remember anything this popular since Colonial Pipeline.
Right.
But so many cyber attacks happen on a daily basis. And that's why we do this show, because it's been 3 years between Colonial Pipeline and MGM. And there's been tens of thousands of cyber attacks between then and now. And that's what we do on this show. We highlight those things. We talk about them, why they happen, and what people can learn from them so they can make changes in their own business. So because we do that, we just ask that you share the show, right? Or comment or like, or do something on social media. Don't just watch our content and do nothing. Help us out. Help other people in your network find this information because it may help somebody in your network one day. And that's all we ask is that you share the show, like, comment, subscribe where you can. And that helps us grow our show. And we'll continue to do it in this format as long as you keep supporting us the way that you are. So, guys, ALPHV ransomware claims attack on Florida Circuit Court. That's our first topic for today. This Black Cat group, ALPHV, a prolific ransomware group, has just claimed an attack that affected state courts across Northwest Florida, and it's part of the First Judicial Circuit. And this happened last week, and allegedly the threat actors have acquired personal details like Social Security numbers and resumes of employees, including judges. Additionally, ALPHV claims to possess a comprehensive network map of the court's systems, complete with local and remote service credentials. Yikes. The ransomware gang commonly threatens to leak stolen data online to coerce victims into negotiation or reopening discussions. The presence of the Florida's First Judicial Circuit data leak page on ALPHV's website suggests that the court has either not engaged in negotiations with the ransomware operation or has firmly declined to meet the gang's demands. So I'm going to stop there and kind of get your thoughts. Andre, we'll start with you since this is in your home state.
My question is, why the heck do they have in plain text Social Security numbers and all of this personal information? It's basically like in an Excel spreadsheet. Accessible for anybody, for these people to be able to get access to.
Because no one thought about it. I mean, and back in 1994, when they started keeping stuff like that in a spreadsheet, that's just how they did it. That's my guess.
Well, I mean, you bring up a good point though when you ask that question, right? Because you can kind of split that question up in the different, kind of theories or ways to look at it, right? One is, quite frankly, the judicial system's behind the times when it comes to this stuff. There's no requirement for them to encrypt this stuff, right? So it's a choice, right? There's very few regulated industries where encryption is a big piece. HIPAA being one of the ones. Like everybody knows in HIPAA, kind of the get out of jail free card with HIPAA is making sure that everything that you have is encrypted, especially when it comes to electronic health records. But at the end of the day, nobody's forcing these guys to use encryption. They don't, and they may not understand why they need to, at least until now, right? So that's thing one. I mean, encryption, it's a great question to ask, but my input would be they're probably not required to do it. So, unless somebody's forcing them to do it, why would they do it? That's kind of the attitude most businesses have these days when it comes to this stuff. That's why we have this show, to kind of educate people on this is kind of the lay of the land out there and what's going on out there. And anybody who thinks that when they submit something to a court, that's being handled correctly, well, here's proof that it's not. So,
okay, I'll give you that one. But then what about the next line, where it talks about local and remote service credentials?
Well, that right there, I mean, that's just they're already in the network, and they're getting more access. I mean, that's it at the end of the day. They have 2 terabytes of data, and it doesn't appear, and because they're on the dark web leak site, that leads us to believe that this Florida court has decided not to negotiate.
Yeah.
And the ALPHV, they're just showing the world, like, here's the level of access we have. Now, I think it takes guys like us to kind of explain to people, layman's people, like, this is pretty bad, the level of access they have, because I think maybe the people making the decisions around not to negotiate don't really understand what this group can do with what they have. Thoughts on that, Randy? Do you agree, disagree? No?
Oh, yeah, I agree. I don't have any extra thoughts.
Yeah. So, other than that, we don't have a ton of information on that, right? They're trying to work through some kind of, I guess you want to call it, business continuity plan. They disclosed that they were investigating a cyber attack that disrupted operations last Monday. This event will significantly affect court operations across the circuit, impacting courts in Escambia, Oskaloosa, Santa Rosa, and Walton counties for an extended period of time. And the circuit is prioritizing essential court proceedings, but will cancel and reschedule other proceedings and pause related operations for several days beginning Monday, October 2nd. They're just basically saying they're trying to communicate with litigants and attorneys regarding rescheduling. When like this is kind of the MO for courts when things happen. I mean, I know at least in New Jersey, when there's snow, this is kind of the normal course of business. They just kind of cancel everything and kick everything down the road schedule wise, which is why, you hear a lot of complaints about the court system and how slow things are. Other than that, guys, I mean, I don't know. I kind of get the impression, and my feeling is they're not taking it as serious as it is. They're like going back to what I said. They're kind of treating it like a snowstorm, and it's not a snowstorm.
Yeah. Sweep it under the rug. Move on.
They're trying, and I don't think it's going to work out that way. So, anything else you want to add to this before we kind of move on?
Just one quick thought. It says that they've released personal information of judges, and that's, going back to the whole national security or, foundation of civilization kind of thing. I mean, that's very important that judges have a certain amount of, being anonymous, if you will. And it's really kind of disturbing to me that would be leaked online, because then that could be used to harass them or try to influence them or, try to bribe them or whatever. So that's a little disturbing there. And I don't think they're taking it serious enough.
Could be used for political purposes as well.
Yes.
So moving right along, good luck to the Florida Circuit Court there, getting out of that little pickle with ALPHV, probably one of the most prolific groups out there today. And then we have Flagstar Bank customers. They were customers of the MoveIt software product, and they've just released that the Michigan-based bank had personal data from 837,000 plus customers across the U.S. stolen after its third-party mobile banking and payment processing provider, Fiserv, was impacted by the MoveIt hack. The CLOP ransomware operation, which compromised more than 64 million individuals across 2,000 organizations around the world. Wow. So again, a bank outsourced payment processing to a third-party company, and now this company has 830,000 plus customers who had their data stolen as a result of what Fiserv was doing and using for software to run the services that they provide to these banks. It's kind of like a supply chain on top of a supply chain mess for the banking industry.
Yeah.
And go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, we kind of mentioned it before in past shows, but at this point, you have to assume that your data is out there. Like, it's a no-win situation when it comes to your social security number, your bank information. It's like we talked about the courts. Now a bank, it's like, if you're just a consumer and you're just dealing with these entities and they're just getting clopped, no pun intended, you have to assume that your social security is out there, and you have to make safeguards to make sure that it's not being in use.
Yeah, this is crazy because this is actually their third big attack. So they had an attack in 2021 when they had customer and employee data, including names, phone numbers, addresses, social security numbers, and tax records, which was also a CLOP ransomware attack that targeted its Acelian file transfer server. And then in 2022, they had 1.5 million of the bank's customers had their information leaked, including names and social security numbers. That came from another breach that happened. That was June 2022. So, man, I wonder if there's any customers left at that bank whose stuff hasn't been leaked yet.
I know, it's wild. So we also have another cyber attack to discuss. There's an Oklahoma grocery store, and their shipment of food got delayed due to a cyber attack on another company. So here we go with more supply chain types of attacks, and everybody's, we've been talking about it for almost the whole entire 2023. This whole third-party risk, understanding your partner's risk to your company, and what the impact if they get hit with ransomware or some other cyber event can be on your business. And it's, more and more, guys, that we're seeing these types of things where some other company got hit and it's impacting the operations of, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 other companies. And this is just becoming more and more prevalent as we move on, and these hackers get better, quite frankly, at what they're doing. But we have this Phelps grocery store, and the story we have here is from Oklahoma and Manford, Oklahoma. There is the Phelps grocery store, and they were impacted by this. And basically what happened was this Associate Wholesale Grocers, it's one of the nation's largest cooperative food wholesalers
The largest, actually.
It is the largest, to independently owned markets. So think about your small mom and pop supermarkets that are still out there, right? Very few of them left. And this is the supplier for those grocery stores for the most part. And the hack has affected the company's ability to process and ship orders, causing its trucks to be stranded in Oklahoma City. And a lot of popular items are unavailable to customers who depend on Phelps because it's the largest grocery store in Manford, Oklahoma. So I just want to kind of stop there, guys, and talk about this. Randy, you live in more of an area like this than we do, so you might have some perspective on how important these types of grocery stores. I know in the green room you kind of kidded about it, saying it was like a little grocery store. But like, this is clearly this town's main source of food, from what I'm reading. And maybe you can kind of shed some of your perspective of what this could mean for people in this town.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably true, I would say, across most of the country, but especially I know true in most of rural Oklahoma, especially. You're going to have mostly independent grocery stores that are going to be locally owned. That's true of a lot of towns, a lot of small towns in Texas as well. And, people can get in cars and drive, but the next town over might also be an Associated Wholesale Grocers store, would also be impacted by that. This is interesting because most of the time a supply chain attack, when we hear about it, it's somebody messed up the code somewhere, the bad guys got into the code, injected themselves in there, and then that shows up in the supply chain. This is literally a physical supply chain where you have an associated grocery. It's like a co-op where you have this very, very probably a large warehouse somewhere, or network of warehouses, and they're distributing food to all of these grocery stores all over everywhere. I mean, I know that particular brand, they're big in Texas as well. So this has the potential not just to affect one small town at one grocery store in Oklahoma, but this has the potential to affect thousands of grocery stores probably all around the country.
And I'm sure, countries that don't like the U.S. is taking note of this. There's one thing that we always talk about it. Well, we don't talk about, but, attacking U.S. physically. But if, you go after the grocery store and, cripple America that way. So I'm sure, China, Iran, et cetera, are definitely taking note of that.
Yeah. And, this is kind of, I don't want to get off in the weeds too much, Brian. So rein me
I'm
in.
gonna get my tinfoil hat over here. Hang
Exactly. No.
Let me play my X-Files music.
Yeah, this is no X-Files. But over the last 30 years, we have really moved to what's called just in time. And, Toyota's famous for that, to where, they have a car coming down, it needs a blah, blah, blah. Just when it needs the blah, 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 they place the orders, and then boom, they pop the blah, blah, blahs in there, and they keep moving it down, where everything kind of happens. We do it all the time. We run out of something. We get on Amazon, we buy it. We need a technical supply. We get on Amazon, we buy it. And that has really become our norm. Well, the thing is with attacks like this, it can disrupt to where just in time doesn't work anymore. And so I think we're seeing a shift of, maybe people are keeping more things on hand than they used to have, more toilet paper, maybe, I don't know, more routers, more firewalls in stock, where you keep more things on hand because you never know when you're going to run into a disruption like this. And it's been really true the last 3 years. We've really ran into this time and time again. So anyway, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and this guy, the store manager, Eddie Youngblood, and I just want to point this out because it is important. He said things like this happened during COVID and they've learned to work through it. This ain't like COVID. Yeah, you might have had a driver shortage because people were sick or couldn't come to work or what have you. But there was always kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, with that. Like, there's a pretty good chance that this company doesn't know when they're going to be able to resume operations. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of goes to show you, and again, why we do this show is people don't understand this stuff. And they're just, this guy saying, we're just glad our customers are understanding. Well, they're going to be understanding to a point, right? He's kind of going off on a limb by promising that, what we didn't have last Saturday, we're going to have this Saturday. And I guess they were having some kind of one-day sale. So they're going to basically be able to take advantage of last week's sale this week. That's super optimistic, in my opinion, especially for a third party, because he has no control over whether or not, this, Associated Wholesale Grocers gets their systems back up and running. So, that's a lesson learned here maybe for this outfit, is to really understand like what you say in the public and certain things like that. It could be helpful and it could be hurtful. And I think, you're walking a fine line here by saying things like this, because if you don't have groceries in the store on Saturday, this statement's going to be hurtful because customers are going to go, well, you said, you'd be back up and running by Saturday, and you're not. And now they're pissed off, and then they're going to find another grocery store, even if they have to drive 7,500 miles to get to it.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I think just from his perspective as a store manager, we just, we'd run out of all kinds of random things. And I think he's just saying that, that was what happened all during COVID. And I don't know, by workarounds, does he mean that have they made connections with other suppliers, where they can get other certain things? Are they making runs to Sam's, down in Wichita Falls and loading up that way? What are they doing to work around these things? But yeah, you're probably right. They could be in for a big shock if the the distributor doesn't get these issues worked out.
And then moving right along, this is an interesting one. I don't know how big this one's going to blow up to. And it's a big concern, right? Because a lot of people think of this company as like kind of like an Amazon for IT, but the reality of it is they compete with us. Not only do they sell products, but they also sell services like cybersecurity services. And LockBit, ransomware gang, is threatening to release data on Wednesday stolen from CDW Corporation, a major IT reseller and service provider based out of the US, Canada, and UK. And the gang members have come out, LockBit gang members have come out, and they made the decision because negotiations over the ransom fee broke down. So they started releasing this information on their LockBit data leak site. And they're threatening the company and saying you'll be able to see all the information. The negotiations are over and no longer in progress, and we have refused the ridiculous amount offered. LockBit listed CDW Corp as one of its victims early last month. It isn't known how much data was stolen or whether it includes personal information of employees and customers as well as corporate information. I'd be scared a hell of a lot more than that, because you're talking about an IT company. They could have network maps. They could have all kinds of network information about companies. As a hacker, guys, if I knew what kind of computers a company was running, look, they bought a bunch of Dell Latitudes back in, 2018, right? And then if I can get inside their network and find those devices and then run known vulnerabilities against that device that I know exist on that device because I know what devices that company's using. It's like such a trivial piece of information, but what a hacker can do with that's what I'm trying to illustrate by saying what I'm saying.
Yeah, but not just any IT company. We're talking a $20 billion IT company. Mm-hmm. So this is come on, protect your customers' information. Unless what they have is not relevant, and that's why they made that calculated risk. But I'll be curious to see what the price was offered and what they found so disrespectful.
So CDW has not commented on this, and you got to believe that they're well aware that this is going on, especially if this group is saying that we were in negotiations with them and those negotiations broke down. So now we're going to start, doing what we do, which is threaten and release information. And they'll start to slowly release information out, hoping that this CDW will reconsider and eventually, go back to the negotiating table and potentially negotiate down a ransom amount. Be interesting to see where this one goes, guys, and how far it gets, because I would imagine that there's some pretty interesting proprietary information about CDW clients in there that their clients probably would rather not have out there.
Yep.
So,
does it say in this article how much they asked for and how much the counter was to the original ask for the ransom?
I don't have that information in front of me. It sounds like, and I guess to your point, I'm asking that question. Let's kind of educate people on what usually happens today. Chances are in this situation, and I don't have any inside information here, I'm just basing what I'm about to say on historical experience with dealing with groups like this. And these groups are usually inside of a network for a very long period of time. Could be months, could be 6 months, could be 8 months, could be 2 months. While they're in there, they're looking for information. They're looking for how much money does this company have? Right? CDW is publicly traded. It's pretty easy to kind of figure out where things are at with them. But also they can find things like insurance policies, contracts, all that kind of stuff. And all that is used as leverage to get them to pay. And that's what companies, I think, fail to understand is the hackers have a leg up in these negotiations because they probably already have information about your company that you might not realize that they have. And they're using that in every step of the negotiation process. And it's kind of like you're flying blind in the negotiation because you don't realize the information that they have on you. And you're trying to play, I've seen companies where they're like, don't tell them we don't have that much money. We don't have that kind of money. Hackers know that they have that kind of money because they have documents that support it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want people to understand is you're not negotiating with some guy halfway around the world who's just picking a number out of thin air and asking you to pay it. There's usually very good methodical reasoning behind the number that they're asking for. And the more data that they have, the more information they found on you, the less they're going to be willing to be to back off that number.
They also can get information from like Zoom Info and places like that. And you have to think about the fact that people think that you click on a link in an email and then, next thing you know, all the computers are ransomed. Right. You click on a link in an email and it opens up will open up some sort of little process, like a little bitty worm is going to come out of your computer. It's going to go into the network and it's going to start moving off the land and it's going to build a profile of everything that's going on. They're going to put research into this and they're not going to just like blindly fly into it. They're going to know everything about you from the inside. They're going to have all the research available about everything about you from the outside. And so, these things have, the negotiations here have basically stalled into, looks like they're pissed at each other because probably they asked for a lot more money than CDW is willing to pay.
Yeah, so. I don't think CDW is pissed at them. I think hackers are pissed at CDW for even letting it go this far. So CDW, if anything, is probably sitting there going, probably not even believing that they were hacked. More than likely. Well, so MGM guys, let's kind of wrap up our current events section of the show. It's been widely reported that MGM expects at least $100 million hit from this cyber attack. I think it's just going to go up from there. But it's basically where we're at right now is the cyber crew that infiltrated MGM in a cyber attack in September came away with personally identifiable information from customers in an operation that the resort giant said will cost it some $100 million. They filed an 8K with the SEC, and they did state that the full scope of cost is yet to be determined. And that's why I said the number is probably going to go up because usually, just based on my observation of their response and, my experience with other companies doing this kind of stuff, that you combine those two things and they're probably not exactly, nailing the number down to where it needs to be. 100 million is a round number. Somebody's just pulling that, out of thin air, basically doing some quick math. But when it comes down to it, the class action lawsuits hit. This is going to cost them way more than what's being advertised right now. Yeah. The stolen information included name and contact information such as phone number, email address, and postal address, gender, date of birth, and driver's license numbers. And for a limited number of customers, social security numbers and passport numbers were also obtained by the criminal actors.
You got to put the quotes. You can't just say, because you just passed by that, a limited number. What is limited number for MGM?
Limited numbers, they're whales because you only have to give your social security number if you gamble a certain amount. So social security numbers for U.S. residents, passport numbers for foreigners, that would be my guess. And that's what they're talking about. Like, there's, if you look at the percentage of people that go to casinos, obviously if you walk into a casino and you put money down, you're a gambler, but there's low level gamblers, right, that don't spend a whole lot. They're just there to have a good time while they're in Vegas or whatever. And then you have like serious people who spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars at these casinos every single month. And, that's probably the customers they're talking about there. But like for me, like this brings up a whole host of like situations that could come down the pike for these customers. Extortion, you know, if you dig in hard enough on some of these people, you may find that, you know, they don't want this information getting out. Maybe they're, you know, the owner of a big company, a CEO of a big company, and they don't want people to know that they're a degenerate gambler, right? And so a cyber criminal or a criminal will use that. If they can understand by just simply sending a stupid email, right? We see these dumb emails that come across all the time, like, hey, I hijacked your camera, I saw everything that you did. And like, we get people that email us those messages in and be like, oh, is this legitimate? It's like, we kind of look at each other and go, really? Like, were you doing something in front of your camera where you need to be concerned about this kind of stuff? But the reality of it is you can get a simple email like that says like, hey, I know you're a degenerate gambler, and you know, if this ever got out, so pay me this amount of money, right? For you know, or otherwise I'm going to release that, you know, to the public that you're a degenerate gambler. You guys think that's something that could happen?
Yeah, and the article also mentioned that you got some passports and, you know, other information from who knows if it's their employees or customers, but it's not going to be good at all for them. And as you said, let the class action lawsuits come.
Yeah, and you know, all they have to do is take all that information and pop it into evil chat GPT, which is chat GPT with the good evil switch to evil, and pop that in there and just say, hey, here's all the information of all the stuff that we've stolen that's been leaked, all the users, all the customers. Give us some good angles for attack, or write us a phishing campaign or whatever. That's what we're going to be seeing tons more of. We already are, but we're going to see that. That's going to explode in the next few months.
So MGM it's been reported by the Wall Street Journal that MGM has refused to meet the hackers' ransom demands, and they're going to try to go about this using their own recovery. Caesars Entertainment, which was also hit by a ransomware attack, is believed to have paid about half of the $30 million demanded by the hackers to prevent disclosure of the stolen data. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see what kind of comes out of that, and if people decide to not do business with MGM as a result of them not doing everything they could to prevent that data from getting released. Kind of like what Caesars did, if you want to look at it that way. But there's always a risk that you pay that money and the data still gets released.
Well, yeah. So the bank that we talked a little bit about at the beginning or near the beginning of the show, notice the first attack and the third attack were the same company. And so they paid the ransom, but you almost know for sure that the attacker, they didn't remove their stuff. You know, they probably never do. Like, why should they? They probably expect you to root that out. I do know we need to wrap up the show soon, but I saw a pretty good question come in on the comments. That'd be awesome if we could look at it.
Yeah, we will. One last thing on this that I want to kind of mention is that the other thing too is I did say you always run the risk of the data getting released, even if you pay. And people are like, well, what's the point of that, right? Why would you pay if you still run the risk? But here's my perspective and what I've seen. Cyber criminals can get hacked too. And cyber criminals, cybersecurity isn't that great a lot of times. They're not sitting there spending a whole lot of time thinking about, you know, their defense and if they get hacked. And the risk you run is, now somebody else is in possession of your data and they're saying, we're not going to release it. But what if that entity gets hacked by somebody? And they're like, oh, I'm in a cyber criminals network. I'm going to take all this data that I just found and I'm going to start selling it out on the dark web. There's absolutely, that is absolutely within the realm of possibility where a third party hacks a cyber criminal group and then starts releasing that data. So just food for thought there when it comes to this stuff. And so you want to jump to Steve's question, or you want to jump to trends?
Well, I'm at my hard stop, so probably Steve's question.
Do we have 10 more minutes?
Andre and I have been chatting about this in the green room for about 10 minutes.
Don't we have to stop at 2?
No, he said 45.
Oh, okay. All right. So we'll pop up, Steve. My bad. I thought we had till.
It's not the hardest stop I've ever had, but it is. I have to be somewhere, and it's going to take me a minute to get there.
Yeah, and I don't watch the chat when we're doing the show.
Right.
I know you don't. We always make fun of you in the chat. Not make fun of you, but we tease you. So. Yeah, a little bit.
Sorry, I'm looking for new co-hosts anyway. So Steven mentioned, to us that it makes sense to assume our data is out there on the dark web. So what do you guys, and I guess we'll do around the horn here real quick to end the show. What safeguards would you recommend from these risks if you've or get an alert that says your some piece of your data is on the dark web? We'll start with Andre. Go ahead.
Well, first thing I do is I don't know if this is legal or illegal, but like sometimes I'll go to the doctor's office and they'll ask me for my social security number, and I'll just make it up. I'm not giving, and when you're filling it out on a sheet of paper, when they have to scan it and.
It's not like fraud.
It could be. I mean, I give them my insurance information. That of course, but like, why do they need my social? But anyways, nobody's knocked on my door. But in addition to that, talking about safeguards, of course, maybe it's not a course for our audience, but there's different services that can monitor your social, lock your social, and then that way, if someone's trying to open up an account, it is going to alert you, and it's not going to let that person, even if it's you, it's not going to let you open up an account or do anything that may change your credit score without doing a verification process.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention is all three of the credit bureaus in the United States. There's other countries that use them as well, but TransUnion, Experian, yeah,
Equifax.
Experian, I can't remember the other one, but
Equifax.
all three of them. Yeah, Equifax. So by law in the U.S., you can freeze your credit, and where nothing can be pulled at all. So you can freeze it, and then you can unfreeze it, and then by law you have to be able to refreeze it instantly. So like we had to get new internet at our house, and it required a soft credit hit, and they're like, "Hey, we tried to hit it." It came back and said it, we couldn't even get in. So I unfroze it. I let them know, hey, go ahead and hit it now. They hit it, and then I froze it back. And that's one of a great way that you can help prevent, knowing that your social security number is out there. And in, 2023, we operate basically across the board with zero trust. So you assume your social security numbers are out there, and this is one of the things that you do. And like Andre said, some sort of monitoring or something like that's also nice too, because then if something does get opened up with your social security number.
Yeah, you can't change your social security number, but you can change your passwords. So if your passwords end up on the dark web, absolutely 100%. Start going through a process of changing those. As we say on this show all the time, use a password manager. We have a whole show on password managers, and I don't really think anything's changed much from the information we gave on that show over a year and a half ago at this point. All the information on that. What's that?
Probably one you shouldn't use anymore based on a year and a half.
Well, I think we trashed LastPass on that one anyway,
okay.
But I don't think that's what I mean. I don't think anything's changed significantly since we did that show. So it's still relevant. Go watch it, even though it's old. But yeah, definitely password managers. Don't reuse passwords. Change your passwords if they're exposed. But I also agree with these guys. Lock that credit, but also lock any family member who may be vulnerable. So your children, maybe your older parents, do something for them and lock their files as well, especially kids under the age of 18, because we see it with a lot of school breaches. There's tons of information out there on the dark web. with data of children that are under the age of 18 as a result of these breaches. And cyber criminals are using these clean social security numbers and clean credit histories to build credit profiles and destroy your kid's credit. Or it could happen on the back end. It could happen when you're old and you're just not aware of this stuff. So monitor senior citizens' credit, monitor young children's credit, lock those files when you can and where you can. That would be my advice. Just don't think about yourself. Think about your family members in this whole situation too. All right, guys. Thanks, Stephen, for the question. Guys, remember, you can always post your comments while we're recording live. We'll try to hit them on the show. If you happen to do it and you're watching the recording, we have team members who are watching those comments as well, and they'll send them our way, and we can talk about them in the show as well. But remember, share our show and tell your friends and family, and we will be back next week for another edition of the Security Squawk podcast. Take care, everyone.